Hi there. It's Marilyn Price on the Mentor Project, and I'm so excited because this is a sort of brand new story. If you think taking two stories, one from both first published in 1852 from the Grimm Tales, and sort of what's a good word? Consolidating their ideas. I would call that a new story or a retold tale of two old tales. So here we are. The Grimm brothers' book was published in 1812, and it was a consolidation, a republishing of stories they heard that were part of the folk tales of the time. And in all honesty, I like to be honest, they were pretty grim. Yes, they were. But a couple of them have been, no, not more than a couple. So let me show you what a grim, what the collection might look like if you happen to have every single Grimm fairy tale collected by the Grimms. That's a lot of story. As a matter of fact, and this says it's complete, but every once in a while when we're not paying attention, they find more. So according to my book, there are 242 very grim tales. So both of the ones we are combining today are ones I hope you know. And another thing I learned while researching these two stories is number one, the story of Snow White was the very first one that Walt Disney Studios made into an animated film of the fairy tales. He did a little bit before that, his studio did. And the second one I don't think is as well used, but it's one of my favorite characters. So let's just do that. So we are often struggling with what we call people that is correct and polite. So when I looked up the words dwarf, which is used in the Snow White story, the original story, or little people, which is sometimes used today, my wise dictionary said what people really like to be called is by their names. So that's what we're going to try to do. I also gave them a surname for our story. That is your last name, your family name. But first I thought I would introduce all the characters to you. I will be totally honest, transparent. There is no Snow White in my story, and there is no wicked stepmother, and there isn't even a prince. Those parts will be played by me and my voice. I will be the prince, and I will be the princess. I will do the snoring, because there's a lot of that in our story. Not that we're bored. And I will try and guide you along. But ta-da! I have been trying to tell the story of Snow White and the family that takes care of her for a long time. And the way I was able to do it was to take a work glove and attach 7 characters from the family. So I thought I would introduce them to you. 7, you say. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where's the 7th? Well, let's start with him. There he is. That's Bashful. He hides. Bashful. That's how he gets his name. Now, maybe you have a nickname, and I guess that's what they are too for them, but they actually talk about their characters. So let's go a little closer so you can see them, my dudes here. All right, this one up here. Sorry, buddy. This one up here, that's Doc. He's always reading and taking care of people, so he has glasses. And that's just a generalization, right? This one down here, and I've put ever so carefully an initial. This one you can see also by his eyes. He's sleepy because he spends a lot of his time sleeping. And let's see, what do we got over here? I should get on this side where you are too. That one's happy. He's got an H on his t-shirt. That helps me out. And this one is, we said Doc. And this one, his name is, I don't exactly understand why he is called Dopey. And I just think he's kind of, kind of on his own time frame. And over here we've met Bashful, and over here with the hanky. That would be Sneezy. And all the way over here, hiding out here. Who are you? You're not Happy. Happy's over here. Oh dear. I know who he is. He's grumpy. I think during the course of a day, we all have all of those emotions. So these are our dudes. Now, I have added an extra character, and I, before your very own eyes and ears, am going to make him. And he is called Rumpelstiltskin. Now, for those of you who have read the story, you know what it's about. Brief summary. The king wants a princess, a queen. Rumpelstiltskin takes a young princess to meet him, becomes the queen, but he extracts a promise from her that she will give him her firstborn child. Well, she says, what the hey, I can beat him. I can trick him out of it. But as you would know by the way the story goes, what she has to do is guess his name. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know anybody named Rumpelstiltskin. So this is how you can make your very own principal character of our story. You take a piece of paper. Here it is. And we're going to do this. We're going to rumple it. Rumple it and rumple it and rumple it and rumple it. And then we're going to pick up a corner of it. And ever so not carefully and quickly, we're going to make it a little face. Because that is a very rumpled character. I think I'm going to give him rumpled hair too. There he goes. Kind of sly looking. And we're going to put his little hair down here. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, my Rumpelstiltskin. You can have one of your very own. And if you want to do the rest of the story, I recommend you take a glove. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of extra gloves after the winter because I lost the other one. So with a little bit of permission, you can make a handful of characters. So our story starts not at the beginning of the tale of Snow White. Our story starts at the conclusion of both. Rumpelstiltskin has run off because he could not get what he wanted, and that only makes him what? Yes, angrier and angrier. He is mad. So here we go. Once upon a time, there were 7 brothers, but in actuality, there were 8. But allow me to introduce them by name. There was Grumpy, there was Sleepy, Yawn, there was Dopey and Doc and Bashful and Sneezy, and of course, Happy. Where's Bashful? Okay. But there was an 8th one, and his name was Rumple. Because he was. Now, most people don't know about Rumpelstiltskin or the other Stilskin families. They know them, but they didn't know that they had a last name. And in fact, they did. The 8th Stilskin is called Rumple. Well, as long as we are discussing what we don't know, all the brothers had lovely, smooth skin, except for Rumple. And he hated it. You might guess that he was always in a bad frame of mind because of these traits, and you would be right. He was grumpier than grumpy. Nothing could ever convince him that he was beloved. So one day, he just got up, left that tiny cottage, never to meet the heroine of our story, Snow White. Now, Rumpelstiltskin got on his horse and went to make his own adventure. Being of sad and unhappy mind, he often looked for trouble in all the right places. He took what wasn't his from people of means and borrowed things that were not his from people of no means at all. He was generally mean and generally misunderstood. Some folks seem to slide deeper and deeper into trouble as they seek out mischief. So was the case with our Rumple. Because you've all read the story of Rumpelstiltskin and the adventure with the princess and the plot to steal what was not his again and how she tricked him, I would imagine that you know how mad that would make him. He was so annoyed, and now he decided he would seek revenge. He was not living happily ever after. It turns out that mad as a hatter, he who would not wear one, went home to his family of the Stilskin. He was imagining his revenge, especially on Happy, who got on his nerves because he was always happy. And if you are not, it is particularly annoying when someone else is. He may rode through ever and a day until he got to the cottage where he was raised. He was astonished. It was a mess. It was. Vines were covering, and it was not well manicured. And generally, he could hardly get to the door. He was kind of small, as the rest of them were, being short in stature, but mighty in revenge. But this was a very long time since he had seen the cottage, and it was terrible. So very carefully, especially for him, he walked to the front door and was about to knock when he remembered that his brothers always left a key under the door. So he picked it up and he went inside. Imagine his surprise when he found that in the middle of the room, there was a beautiful princess sound asleep. She was almost, but not quite, as beautiful as the princess in his story, but she was snoring. So he was kind of put off by that. He wasn't surprised at Sleepy, who had the silliest expression on his face, and never surprised at Grumpy or Dog or the usual snarly Grumpy. They were all sleeping. Happy was grinning as if he was having a great dream. Dopey was found sound asleep in the strange scenario, looking as surprised as ever, but content. And Sneezy had a tissue in his hand. The room was covered with a layer of dust, and Sneezy would have been, of course, in great distress, but he seemed to be sleeping through it. Oh dear, they were including this great intruder, the lovely princess with the lovely hair and nice face. Rumple did not know what to do with it all except to take a closer look. Point of fact, this was the 99th year of the 100-year sleeping. It was actually the 99th year, the 11th month, and the 29th day. Rumple did not have a clue of any of this, as he had been busy making trouble and living the long lives the Stilskin family were generally noted for. But he did know that he was very hungry. He saw in the middle of the cottage a big apple, but it was as rumpled as he, and as hungry as he was, not knowing that it was the poison apple that put them all to sleep. He was about to take a bite when he heard an approaching pair of hooves. Can you make some hooves for me? Thank you. It was, of course, a magnificent horse, being ridden by a prince of a fellow. Now, zounds, said the prince. He was on his mission to find his beloved, and he wasn't having an easy time of it at all. When he saw the cottage, bedraggled and worn, he thought of perhaps he could find water for his steed and some food for himself. And who knows, perhaps a beautiful beloved. He's a prince, you know. He's read books, fairy tales. Rumple had hid under the dusty cupboard and watched as the prince was able to walk through the door that Rumple, of course, had left open. Zounds, said the prince, what is happening here? He was quite a smart fellow, and he could count up to 7. So he proceeded to do exactly that. 7 sleepy fellows and 1 good-looking woman. All sound asleep. He carefully walked to look at the sleeping woman. He gazed at her goodness, which of course was evident, at least to him. Could she be my beloved? He looked closer and closer, and then Rumple, forever mischievous, snuck up behind him and pushed just a touch. The prince tumbled over and kissed because he fell at her lips. Who doesn't? The princess. Her eyes flew open and she said, "Who are you to kiss me?" That's really just what happened. After all, think about it. During her awake life, she had been forced out of her home, went to live with a family she didn't know of 7 Stilskins, and then she had been targeted by a wicked witch. Egads, what a life! And then she'd been woken out of a sound sleep by a stranger, albeit with good intent. But she didn't know. She'd had a hard time of it, right? The kindly prince explained it as best he could. But as she looked about and saw her friends still asleep, except for Rumple, who went back to his hiding place, as she walked around, she gave each of them the gentlest of kisses. Happy was indeed happy. Sleepy was well rested. Grumpy was less grumpy, if not happy. Sneezy took some allergy meds that the princess gave him because she always carried them with her. Doc took everyone's temperature and welcomed his colleague. Bashful was found and shyly ventured forth. Dopey was a bit confused, but as ever, surrounded by love. They were all talking at once, trying to explain what had happened to the prince when they heard a voice they had not heard in a very long time. It was their brother, Rumple. When Snow White saw him, she totally got him. What does that mean? Well, she picked him up, as was her manner, and invited him to borrow some clothes from one of his brothers. And then she took his favorite coat and she ironed it, straightened his hair, and set him before that now famous mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the sleekiest bro of all?" And the mirror replied, "Hey, is that you, Rumple? You look very grand. We shall have to change your name to, are you ready? Natty, Nettie, Spiffy. How about Spiffy?" And he was that. And it just put him in the best frame of mind. Of course, why not? He became a tailor. And the 9 of them went off to the palace, where they became the Stilskins in residence. To the new prince and his beloved. No one would ever guess that she was really 100 years old. Older than the prince. But that, my readers, is what makes this a totally unbelievable but lovely fairy tale. And yes, could even be a fairy tale. 2 stories melded together like the audience and the storyteller puppeteer. I hope you have a upright day and day of great joy. I hope that your stories end well. I would like to thank the Mentor Project, of course, the Kaufman Family Foundation, Tribe Reading Inc., but mostly, to tell you the truth, I'd like to thank you for coming to hear this fairly fairy tale. May all your days be as good as you make them. And that, according to my friend Rumple, is the